what's really clear with some of the other organisations that operate out here is that they just don't operate to a good enough standard.
No, there is no standard, is there?
No standard.
There are surprises around every corner. Oh, that's another 10,000. Oh, that's another 5,000. And people that are choosing a destination like Mexico City, we don't have, under the mattress, another 30, 40 grand just waiting to be spent. People are still making bad choices by being exploited as an intended parent, as a desperate future parent, or as someone that has just chose the wrong agency because they were missold from the beginning.
Mexico City is a really emerging destination, and a lot of people have a lot of questions. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think it's now time that we use that buzzword of fact check.
Welcome to a new series of a Mexico City edition of our My Surrogacy Journey podcast. How are you doing? Hola. I am Michael. You may have seen us, may have seen me, you may have seen Wes, more likely Wes, and we are going to be the hosts of this special edition today. I am one of the founders of MSJ, and I'm a dad through surrogacy to two gorgeous children.
And I'm Wes. I'm the other founder of My Surrogacy Journey and the other half of my amazing husband here, Michael. Surely looking at me as if to say, wow.
No, I've just arrived in Mexico last night, so I've not seen you for nearly a week. I know. So here we are, reunited for this, just for you.
Yes, and we decided to create our organisation back in 2021 when, we wanted to change the surrogacy landscape and look at all of the challenges and create an organisation that really helped and supported people in a very, very different way to how you typically see those organisations.
Yeah, so if you've been following us, you'll kind of see what we've been doing from a My Surrogacy Journey point of view. And we wanted to record this edition, and we're here today. We're talking to you from Polanco, our offices in Mexico City. This view behind, just appreciate this gorgeous view behind us. But yeah, we're here doing this live for you to give you some real good insights to what's to come. And this is a lovely edition that we're going to be releasing.
So if you listen to this podcast, unfortunately, you will not appreciate the views. But if you're watching this on our YouTube podcast, then you will absolutely see them. We are on the 11th floor. No, we're on the 10th
floor, yeah,
of our building. And in the background, you just see this amazing skyline. We're filming this at 7 a.m. in the morning, so the sun is just coming up.
Oh, it's just, you've got that volcano in the background, the whole city skyline. It's just wow. This is one of the reasons why I love coming to this place.
And I think one of the reasons that we created this podcast is really to try and bust some myths, introduce you to some of our partners, some of our team, and really get the answers to some of the questions that you might have. Mm-hmm. I don't think any other organisation out there, this is not about us versus them, but ultimately we see a need to give people information. Mm-hmm. We know that Mexico City is a really emerging destination, and a lot of people have a lot of questions. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think it's now time that we use that buzzword of fact checked some of that stuff, give everyone the information to help them make the decision. So this podcast really is designed in a really logical order to help give you an understanding of all of the components of the Mexico City journey.
And unlike season 1, 2 and 3 of our predominantly UK podcast, we've decided to release this in one, all of the episodes coming at you straight away. The first time we're recording both visually and recording this as a podcast. So there's going to be two kind of spins to this, because we want to really, you the listener or you the viewer, see our team, where we're coming from, why we do what we do. So this is episode 1, and we are really excited to be telling you of what's coming up. And like you said, it's all done in a logical order, so you can just binge and go through every single one as you need to.
We've tried to consider it so that you move from episode to episode in an order in which the journey would happen, which should hopefully help you kind of rationalize it and get a sense of the order in which stuff needs to be done. And I think sometimes people forget or don't know. I think why it needs to be done in that way. Yeah, and also I think we don't want you to have to wait for the episodes to be released after one another. often you want to know all this information. You want to know it now.
Well, time's already ticking.
Yeah,
and especially when people are moving to an international destination, there's a lot of levers, or there's a lot of reasons as to why that journey needs to progress. So to wait week on week, if episode number 17 is the one that you want, it was only right to.
And I know how annoying that is. When when you've got to watch a box set or something, or you're waiting for it to come out, and you're like, it leaves you on a cliffhanger. I promise you there'll be no cliffhangers on this.
There's going to be no cliffhangers, and we hope that this just gives you everything that you need. And our members that are already on a Mexico pathway are already excited to hear about this. I'm excited to release this because whether you work with us or not, this has been designed to cut through all of that noise, the tons of misinformation about Mexico, because let's be really frank, depending where that information is coming from, it's not always accurate or fair or representative. So
context.
Yeah. So let's just talk about some of the things that we've got coming up then. Who are we going to be talking to? We've both got notes. So if you're watching us, you're going to see us viewing our notes that have been expertly created by our wonderful team and Mary. Big shout out to Mary. But let's look at some of these future episodes and topics.
So we're going to be talking about agency red flags.
Yeah.
This is about equipping you with the knowledge to be able to cut through some of them and ask the right questions, so that if you do get any red flags, you are equipped with the type of question you can have.
What's a red flag, Wes? Just give me one of them.
It's some of the things that you might see it and think, that doesn't quite feel right. Or it's one of the things that if we equip you with the information, you then realise you ask more questions.
Or call it out and ask
information. Yeah. So an example is, a prime one would be, is the agency you're talking to, do they have a legal relationship with the law firm that they're proposing that you work with?
Are they truly independent?
Are they truly independent? Because we would always recommend that you have truly independent legal advice.
Yeah.
And the reason why independent advice is important, because if they're linked to the agency, then are they truly acting independently and in your best interest?
As an IP.
As an IP.
Yeah.
So it's about some of those like nuggets of information that is just going to give you the tools and equip you to be able to ask those questions where you might not naturally think to ask that or think about the impact of that.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do with our, red flag episode, is really...
That'll be a good one.
And actually, Michael, some people might decide not to work with our pathway, or they ultimately might decide that Mexico is not the destination for them.
Yeah.
But I would much rather them doing that knowingly and doing it with all of the information that's going to help them make that decision. If they then go listen to our podcast and realise that they didn't recognise how long you need to be in country, or what the process was, or how it was,
or how it costs, or how you make your payments.
Totally. And
at least they've not paid anything or committed to anything.
They go into it with their eyes wide open.
Yeah.
That's one of the massive things that we talk about with any journey, is about going to it with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, agreed. One of the episodes that I'm looking forward to our lovely listener getting into is Facebook groups, because there are a ton of them on Mexico. Not all Mexico City, some might be Cancun, some might be other areas.
Yeah.
And as we've seen in the UK from our UK pathway, Facebook groups can be your savior, or they can be your worst enemy, because a lot of the time that's information and opinions, and we've seen it's not always factually correct. And a lot of those groups are run by an agency. So therefore the information is always weighted.
Yeah, or not accurate often. And particularly, we all know that Facebook is difficult to regulate it, and how accurate is that information? Is it anecdotal? Are the people giving you the information qualified to give you that type of information?
Yeah.
Or are the people that are saying you should work with this agency incentivized by that agency?
Again, yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be a really good one.
It is a really good one. And, we've got Melissa on that one, who's one of these IP lawyers. And it's a really good episode to help you, again, just go into it with your eyes wide open and put into context what you're seeing on Facebook. Because I speak to a lot of intended parents before they come to us, and that's where they're getting all of their information from.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but again, know how to interpret that information, know what questions to ask.
And I think that's the reasons I'm creating this special edition, because there isn't currently, to my knowledge, a podcast or information like this that is breaking down all of this.
Not at all.
Aside from a Facebook group, which is always quite weighted.
And look, and if you listen to the podcast and get information out of it, amazing. And if you decide to work with another agency, but you go to that agency better informed, better equipped, then we've done our job. Because this is not just about trying to help people understand about our pathway. It's about trying to help people understand Mexico City.
Yeah.
And if they, are better informed, then people are going to have safer journeys.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's ultimately what we are here to do, right?
I think one of my favourites is going to be breaking down clinical screening and what is involved on your surrogate's journey and what actually happens prior to you being matched or introduced to a surrogate. Because as we have discovered, this is a really important episode and an important topic to educate people on.
It is, because I think a lot of people go into this with the assumption that once they're matched, they're then ready to move forward. But how a lot of the agencies work in Mexico City is they will match you and then the surrogate starts the screening process. Now, at that point, you don't know whether the surrogate's clinically fit. You
get your hopes up, you attach yourself to them.
But not only that, Michael, you start committing financially.
Yeah.
And you start paying for screening. You start paying for, insurance and all of those things. And you could get so far down the line and then your surrogate doesn't meet past screening. So then you have to start the whole
all over again
of matching, which can take up to 2 or 3 months.
Which can then be expensive.
Which is then expensive.
And you're never told all of this because no one breaks down screening or does it in a way that when we were creating our pathway, we decided to set that new standard of this is how we are going to do screening and this is why.
Yeah. And I think it's about, as an agency, us taking accountability and us taking some of the risk.
The cost as well.
That's what I mean. The risk is like we take some of the cost. So it's about fronting it so that it's about sharing that risk, right?
And that's no small number, as we've discovered.
It's not, but it's about making sure that intended parents are taking all of the risk and the agency are not taking any. And that's typically the model that you see in Mexico City.
It is.
So again, eyes wide open, ask those questions. What are the types of things I need to be understanding? And what is the impact of screening? So I think that's going to be a really good episode.
That's a good point.
So I think there's lots of things in there, and one of the things that people talk about and are anxious about is the law. So there's a really good episode that's going to help you understand all of the components of the law. Again, about making the best choice. What's your wait time in country? Because that's very specific about the immigration status of the intended parents and how that what passports you can access. So a lot of people think it's about Mexico. It's actually not. It's about the returning country and the process of attaining a passport or documentation to leave Mexico City.
And what surprised me is when, for us, the way we approach someone's immigration status or their passport was a common sense approach.
It is.
But it's not how it's done by everyone else, it seems to see.
No, it's not. And I think for us, we talk about exit strategy really early on when they start their journey, because it's going to shape their journey and it's going to shape decisions we make about the journey. So we have to assess their ability.
Every single person's ability
and what their exit looks like. Because it's one of the fundamental parts of the journey, and that's one of the things that causes people a lot of anxiety. And it's often a decision maker about whether they choose Mexico City or not, how long they're going to have to stay in country.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's also, I think, one of the main pieces of misinformation about Mexico City. And it's why people take risks that we talk about in that episode. It's why people cut corners, mislead government officials in making poor decisions
totally.
based on getting that passport.
It is, but it's also about the agency being transparent about the exit time. A lot of them kind of tell you it's shorter than it is in reality.
By telling you a process which isn't the process you should be doing.
It is. And I think if you educate yourself on the process, you're then going to be able to scrutinize what they're saying to you about how accurate that exit time frame is.
Yeah.
Because often a lot of it is about just getting you to sign the contract and getting you in. And
of course it is.
You have no choice but to deal with it.
You're already motoring down the tracks by that time.
And once you've got your baby, you've got no other choice but to wait. So I think that should help people make better choices, but also be able to not interrogate, but be able to challenge.
But let's call it out and let's give examples of poorer practice or poor decision making and then the impact of what that can be, because it's as we have seen with people that have been here longer, it's mainly due because they didn't follow the right process in the first place.
Yeah. So let's kind of like jump into this episode then.
Go on then. Let's do it.
So this episode really is why Mexico City and
why we made this pathway.
Why we created it. And just really to give people some context to it.
Cool. Let's do it. Break it down.
let's talk about it, because tell us, Michael, why did we create?
Why did we? Oh my! Why do we do lots of the things that we do, Wes? Because we like to fix particular issues and problems with the space that we are now fully immersed in, being surrogacy and global surrogacy. And we launched this pathway because there was the war in Ukraine, there was issues in Georgia. We were seeing problems with surrogates travelling in Cyprus that were coming from Ukraine or Romania or Albania or Georgia. But intended parents weren't necessarily told about the risks of what a travelling surrogate is. And as we know, the risk of a travelling surrogate can be huge. We've spoken to members that have had this problem.
Absolutely.
And that risk, therefore, is if your baby's born and your surrogate's travelling and your baby's born in a non-friendly surrogacy state, the chance of you getting your baby out is frightening.
It is.
And no one should have that risk. And no surrogate should be travelled or trafficked in that way either. So let's make that really clear. But this pathway was born out of heterosexual people and needing a more inclusive pathway for an international destination. Most people didn't want to wait a 2-year time limit for UK surrogate wait times. And not everyone has, $250,000 to do a US journey. And there needed to be a new middle ground. And Mexico was an emerging destination. We didn't know enough about it, but we dived really deep into it.
Yeah.
And we did what you and I do. We go, right, let's get on a plane. Let's go and talk to some experts. And we took a bunch of people with us, lawyers and clinicians, and we brought ourselves to Mexico over 12 months ago.
And I think, one of the things I was hearing a lot from the people I was speaking to in consultations is that they didn't have the patience for the UK, but they didn't have the budget for the US, but they needed a middle ground. And for us, that Mexico City has become that middle ground. It's really inclusive. You can do double donation. If you're HIV positive, you can create embryos here. It's probably one of the most progressive destinations for reproductive rights.
Yeah.
And there's everyone the access.
And some of the case law that exists here from a surrogacy point of view and from a Supreme Court point of view, which we talk about in that particular episode, has really given Mexico City in particular, because currently our pathway is only working in Mexico City, and we'll tell you why in a minute. But it's given us what we believe is a phenomenal route to parenthood. And clinically, the legals behind it and the support that we've put on the ground makes this something, I'll go as far as saying nothing globally like this exists.
And let's talk about setting the standard, because that's our new tagline, isn't it, for Mexico City? It's all about setting the standard, because we believe that we did that in the UK
with changing the landscape, and here we do need to set the standard, because what's really clear with some of the other organisations that operate out here is that they just don't operate to a good enough standard. No, there is no standard, is there?
No standard, and that's why we need to set it. And I think by being leaders and by being trailblazers, we've got to set the standard, because that's what's needed, not only for intended parents, but for the country itself and for Mexico City, because Mexico generally has a bad reputation, doesn't it?
From a surrogacy point of view, yeah, there's been all sorts of stories about Mexico, whether that's things being called out about people trafficking, or whether that's some of the legals being skewy, or whether that's some of the issues that happened back in 2015 when some of the states banned outright surrogacy. So not every state in Mexico forbids surrogacy or allows surrogacy, rather.
Just like the US though, right?
Yeah.
Because it's, and everyone...
And that's important.
The model's the same.
Yeah.
It's a state-led system. There's federal as well. And in the US, surrogacy is legal in some states and not in others. There's no difference.
Yeah. And it's very quick to be criticised by people in the US because either not enough is known, or what is only known is some of the cases where 1 or 2 US people that have been in the media haven't had a smooth ride.
Because they haven't followed the process.
And we're going to talk about that as well.
But let's just put that into context as well. Equally, there's cases like that in the US.
Yeah, there's cases like that everywhere.
Yeah, so I don't want to beat Mexico, because what we've seen of it is it's a really great destination, and
no destination is perfect, and we always say that as well.
We always say that, but I think Mexico is a much more stable destination than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are very derogatory, but we have seen nothing but amazing people, amazing process, professionals, partners. It's aligned with any of our other pathways, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one of the, anyone that's not a stranger to you and I, everything that we do, I always think about Talulah and Duke, our kids. I want them to be proud of the work that we do. I want them to really see all of the good stuff that we do in building all of these new families. So ethics and really removing the risk of exploitation for us was key. And the due diligence that we did before we even began this journey of even having an office here, 12 months after that DD process, we brought a team of people out here to look into the whites of the eyes and to interrogate all the legal system, the clinicians, the lawyers, met with surrogates to get a feel for, is this right for us?
Yeah. And when creating our own pathway here, we've put a lot more robust framework in to just to further secure that element where that there is no exploitation.
Yeah, and we've done almost like a V2, a reboot of our pathway that we launched in January 2023. Yeah. We did a reboot of that January 2024, and
that's what the current model is now.
Yes.
and it's working really successfly. And the feedback we're getting from our surrogates about the treatment and the empathy and the way that the team are looking after them and how we consider them. Because it goes back to one of our guiding principles, right? Like everyone is equal. Mm-hmm. Everyone is a member. Everyone gets the support they need to be successful on their journey. And I think that's what we've tried to introduce. We have introduced here. And that's really fundamental to both of us, isn't it?
It is. And listener, I can't wait for you to meet Fer, who manages our surrogates. You are going to just fall in love with how much she cares. She's training to be a doula. She's an extreme, a feminist in the gorgeous of sense of marches and is all for women's rights. And surrogates for her are everything. And the feedback that we get, which are on our socials and we're sharing, is testament to how different we behave.
It is. And, throughout the episodes, we're going to talk about all of our team and you'll start to see them on socials, but we're really lucky. We got an amazing team.
Oh my God.
Who really, really care, just like our UK team, really passionate, and they're doing great things. And we are absolutely confident that they are going to help us set the standard here in Mexico.
Without a doubt.
Let's talk about one of the really important things that makes this pathway accessible to people, and that's affordability.
Yeah.
How did we approach the kind of affordability and cost element?
And that was a journey, wasn't it? We our UK team and us, it was really important that we got that number right, that we built a package that there were no surprises for people, that everything that they would need on that journey was factored into the cost. We knew what places like Ukraine and Cyprus cost for people, and we also knew what they included or didn't include. And like our UK pathways, we wanted to make sure that legals were there, agency fees were there, that planning for the pregnancy and what was birth like, and was all that costed into someone being able to afford a journey or not. Because what happens with international journeys, and especially ones in emerging destinations, is there are surprises around every corner. Oh, that's another 10,000. Oh, that's another 5,000. And people that are choosing a destination like Mexico City, we don't have, under the mattress, another 30, 40 grand just waiting to be spent.
And I think whatever journey you're going on, whether you're spending 250k or whether you're spending 35k, you need to know
where are you spending it?
It's about transparency around pricing, because this is one of the things I talk about all of the time. So people make a decision on a destination, and finances is a big part of that decision.
Yeah.
So people make that decision thinking that the cost is X.
Yeah.
And they move forward.
Yeah.
And then they get so far down the line, past the point of return because they're contracted and all of those things, and then realise actually it was Y.
Mm-hmm.
And if they'd known it was Y at the time of making that decision,
would they have made that decision?
They'd have made a very different decision.
Yeah.
So that's really important to us. And price or cost transparency is we've detailed everything.
Yeah.
And the things that aren't detailed, for whatever, we can't detail it. We can't factor everything in our cost, because everyone comes to this from a very different scenario. So we can never account for everyone's scenario, but we've accounted for most. But then we also detail what the potential additional costs are, so that we can talk those through with people and help them to understand and what scenarios might they come in.
We give that from the get-go. It is in our e-brochure.
Even before you've signed up,
Yeah.
you see all of that information. That's really critical for us, because unfortunately, one of the reputational elements of Mexico is that pricing and not having full transparency of pricing, which is again another thing that we've tried to address through that. And that we structured it in a way also to make it accessible to as many people as possible. It's not a massive stretch from the UK. For some people, it is a massive stretch, and it's unattainable. But for some people, it does give them the pathway that they need.
And we've got several members that were on a UK journey, that time for them, they needed to step this up. And this was that, let's be honest, this was that last hope of getting this done.
Yeah, totally.
You know, because it is that last stretch financially. But like we said, we feel all the modelling of the things that we've learned over the last 12 months in building it and setting it up, that we have considered everything, and we say that.
We have. And look, let's be just really transparent here and honest. This pathway is not for everyone.
No.
For some people, this is a step too far.
Yeah.
And we get it. But for us, it's important that people have options, because as an organisation, we can't just focus on one destination and that's the only destination we cover, because that only then limits those options. We wanted to make sure we have options for people, and not everyone are going to choose them. But for me, if you understand Mexico City and then decide it's not for you, you're making an informed decision. Even if it's not for you, it's the right decision. You're doing it knowingly. And for me, that's really important. You know, we've got to give people that information.
And it goes back to the guiding principle of you and I. There are tons of mistakes that we made on our journey there, and we see the mistakes that people are making on theirs even today. Even with the information that's out there, people are still making bad choices by being exploited as an intended parent, as a desperate future parent, or as someone that has just chose the wrong agency because they were missold from the beginning.
And I think we always take a really different view to anything that we do, don't we? We always look at things differently.
Much to everyone else's annoyance, I think.
Yeah, our team, like, they're used to us now, but I think that's just the way we do what we do. And I think as intended parents, not through our Mexico City program yet, but
our team are going to be terrified now listening to. They're going to think, oh, what else they're doing?
No, but I was referring to their journey, because we've done it outside of Mexico, but we will.
And we've never spoke about all of that either, have we?
No, and maybe we'll pick that up in another episode. But I think speaking and getting experience from people who have been on a journey, whether it's US, whether it's Mexico City, whether it's the UK, there are common elements of that people can relate to. And, you know, I think it's important. A lot of people really appreciate getting this type of advice or this information from intended parents. Yeah. It's lived experience, it's valued, and
I know what you're saying. I think that, I know in the UK, our UK members take a lot of comfort from the fact that we're the only surrogacy agency in the UK that's formed and founded by parents that have been through it. And whilst there are agencies in Mexico City and Mexico that have parents at the helm of it too, we wanted to make sure that we understood everything about this pathway and that we trust it with what we want to do for the future of extending our family.
And let's just be clear here, Mike, we haven't just opened an office here and leave them to get on with it.
Oh my God, no.
We're front and centre.
Yeah.
Like we are
here you or me are here every other week.
Yeah, but we deal with Mexico City operations every single day. It's not like it just happens because it's all happening while we're all tucked up in bed.
Oh no. Trust me, that is not the case.
We are front and centre, and we have to really finely balance our time and our team between what's going on in the UK and what's going on in Mexico City. So just to give the listener or the viewer absolute confidence that, you know, this isn't our whole focus. We have a really robust team, and we are managing all of our operations wherever they are in the world in absolutely the same way. It's really important to us.
Yeah, it's massively important to, and you will be introduced to all of the people throughout this edition that make this work and that keep you and I on our toes and doing the things that we do and love doing.
We do. And I think finally, the approach we're looking to take with our Mexico City operation is very much like we did with the UK, right? It's about looking at how we can change people's perceptions of surrogacy, because there's still the same type of perception.
The education runs through everything that we do. In every business that we operate that runs in surrogacy and modern family building, education is the one piece of misinformation, or it's the piece that's needed. And I think here more so than the UK, I would say, globally, people need to understand Mexico. And like you said, this is not going to be right for everyone. Not everyone is going to enjoy the pathway. So that's the taster for today. We hope you've enjoyed listening to this.
It is. And I think it's a really good episode to frame.
Yeah. And that's what this is all about.
The series, right?
Let's introduce you. If you're watching it, hello. Hello. If you're listening to this, then welcome back. We hope you've enjoyed this. This is why it's been really important. It's why we feel we need to get this out there. Let's talk about what's coming up then, or what's happening next.
So don't forget, there's other episodes available, all designed to help you understand all of the components of our Mexico City pathway. And if you're listening via our app, which is launching soon, or if you're listening via Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google, or YouTube, there's still time to get another fix.
There is. So look, without any more ado, and thank you very much for listening to us. I am Michael.
And I am Wes.
And this is in episode 1 of this new Mexico special edition.
And if you want any more information, then go to our website, which is mysurrogacyjourney.com. And if you want to book a consultation or all of the information,
go straight to the website
on there.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.